Want to help support the channel? Then why not check out the merch that's available from the links below in the description. Help out the channel and get more phenomenal stuff for yourself. And now, with that, let's jump straight into the video. Hey Ranger Nation, welcome back to another video, and today we're carrying on with Manga Monday, and this is I've been killing slimes for 300 years and maxed out my level part 4. If you like this sort of content and you want to see more, or hear more should I say, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as that cheeky notification bell to be notified when more videos drop, and let's just jump straight into it. Living with an apprentice. However, if we were actually going to be living together, we would need to make a few improvements. Listen, Leica, just repairing my house isn't good enough. Honestly, we need to think about expanding it. What do you mean, Great Witch? I'd ask her to call me something besides Great Witch later, but for now, I decided to settle on the issue at hand. You'll be living here too, you know? If we all do repairs, it'll be too cramped. You'll be living here too, you know? If all we do are repairs, it'll be too cramped. We'll have to add another room. I see. Yes, you're right. Originally, a married couple had lived here, but it had worked for them because they were in fact married. There was a greater sense of distance between teachers and apprentices, and having a little more space would make things easier on both of us. For an apprentice, constantly being in close proximity to someone who outranks you would probably be rough psychologically. If it had been me living in the same house as my boss, I would have developed new ulcers every single day. And so, until the upgraded house is finished, I'll be staying in the village. You should stay at the inn as well. In that case, shall I take this opportunity to build it for you? I hadn't expected that response. What, is she a carpenter? Build it? You aren't a licensed architect, are you? As long as I have wood and stone to use, the rest is just assembly work, and that's simple. Leave it to me, please. Leica thumped her chest to show she could do it. Since she was a dragon masquerading as a human, she sure didn't seem qualified to build a house. Still, if she was going to insist that strongly, maybe I would leave it to her. I have the right to use the area of the forest where I gather medical herbs. So go ahead, take trees from there. I'll let you handle the layout and design. Thank you so much. I'll create something to your liking, Great Witch. Oh, I'll go with you just in case. After all, I had no clue whether I could trust a dragon's aesthetics wholesale. Once outside the village, Leica reverted to her dragon form. It would be easier if we fly, so I'll travel in this shape. It's also easier for me to exercise my strength this way. She really is the dragon I thought. We may be outside the village, but they will be able to see us from there for sure. I'll have to explain this to them later. Climb onto my back, Great Witch. I'll go straight to the forest. Do you think you could stop calling me Great Witch? Leica's apprenticeship to a witch meant she was a sort of a witch in training as well. We were practitioners of the same craft. If I was going to be addressed constantly, something else would feel more appropriate. We're going to be living together, so just call me by my name, Azuna. In that case, I shall call you Lady Azuna. I suppose tacking lady on is all right. I'm going to be her teacher anyway. I climbed onto Leica's back. It wasn't uncomfortable up there. At the very least, I didn't feel I was at risk falling. I'll be flying, so tell me which direction the forest is in, if you would. This is kind of a taxi, I thought. Leica travelled quite fast in the dragon form, and we reached the forest before long. It took time on foot only because of the elevation, and as the crow flew, it wasn't very far. There are things that you notice from the air too. Once we were in the forest, she snapped trees one after another. Apparently, a dragon's strength is enough to break large trunks like it's nothing. But my attack power beat this dragon, so what's up with that? Just so you know, don't line up broken trees and tell me it's a house. Make it so drafts won't get in. I know, I'm only doing it this way because I have to saw the lumber. I'll turn them into proper boards later. She was telling the truth. Leica flew to a town somewhere, returning a little while later with all sorts of tools. While I was in town, I looked at several buildings and studied how they were made. I believe that I'll be able to build a good house. Can you learn construction just by looking? Dragons generally have good memories. Leica immediately started processing the trees she'd gathered. She said that, as a dragon, she'd be too big and her hands would fumble things, so she did this part in a human form. Frankly, she was extremely fast. By the time the sun went down, she'd already started on the construction. One of the reasons was her dragon strength allowed her to carry the materials without much effort. True, if you were building a house in Japan, things would definitely go faster if a wooden pier weighed only a few grams. When you were the size of a dragon, designing a building to house humans was a bit like an advanced game of building blocks. She was using a construction method based on slotting components together and avoiding nails as much as possible. It was the technique of Japan's shrine and temple carpenters. No doubt it was fair game for buildings that weren't shrine or temples as well, so it wasn't too strange for a being who lived in a different culture to employ it. That said, fast as she was, there was no way she'd finish it on the very first day, and the sky was getting dark. Why don't we call it a day? Let's go back to the village. I'll find you a place to stay too. I clapped my hands, signaling we were done. Either way, I needed to let the village know I'd taken a dragon as an apprentice. No, Lady Azuna, I'm not tired at all, so I'll keep going. Something about those words rubbed me the wrong way. Dragons have excellent night vision. If I were to work all night, I'll finish tomorrow. Oh, this isn't good. Nope, no way, none of that, I barked. Leica flinched and her hands paused in the middle of their task. Have I committed an error of some sort, Lady Azuna? Leica, you told me you could pull an all-nighter, didn't you? You can't do that. Really and truly, you can't. I thought I'd get it done no matter what. It's not okay to say no matter what too often, as if it's a good thing. I was remembering my days as a corporate slave. If I make myself do overtime today, things will work out tomorrow somehow. If I pull an all-nighter, I can catch up. Over and over, I pushed myself with those beliefs. And what was the result? I ended up with a schedule where pushing myself was the norm. You've already seen the consequences. Eventually, I'd push myself to death. In short, that's what comes out of getting it done, no matter what. We'd worked all the way to sunset. The rest would keep until tomorrow. Look, it's dark, isn't it? The proof that the world is telling us it's time to stop for the day. At the very least, I didn't get stronger by pushing myself. All I did was make it a habit of living moderately. I understand. I'll do as you say, Lady Azuna. Good, that's right. I smiled. I had to be able to manage my subordinates' labor properly. From now on, whenever you get tired or feel like you can't do something anymore, don't hesitate to speak up. My heart aches at your consideration for your apprentice, Lady Azuna. That's a little much, don't you think? I intentionally had to go back to the village in dragon form, then switch to being a human just outside. If I'd made her change in as a dragon, she might have bumped into a building. People have gathered to see what the heck was going on, so in a way, it was perfect. Friends, as of today, the dragon Leica has become my apprentice. She may unconditionally cause trouble for you, but she's a good, considerate girl. Please treat her with affection. As I spoke to them, Leica bowed. If Leica commits any transgressions, contact me, her teacher. I'll scold her properly. The villagers still looked uneasy. Well, they do have a dragon right in front of them, so there's probably no getting around that. Naban the cheesemaker raised a hand. Great witch? Dragons are strong, aren't they? Is it possible she might drink and suddenly fly into a rage? The same is true for me, and every other powerful adventurer, of course. As her teacher, I'll check to make sure my apprentice doesn't get drunk and cause a scene. I know what this reminds me of. It's like taking a new subordinate on a visit to a client company. You have to understand the client's perspective, but at the same time, you have to protect your colleague. Finally, the village chief came over to me. I repeated what I said a minute ago. All right, Leica, tell them in your own words. She looked a bit tense, but gave a small nod. I had her personally tell the villagers why she wanted to study under me. I am the dragon Laika, and I've apprenticed myself to Lady Azuna, the Witch of the Highlands. I look forward to making your acquaintance. Naturally, when I am in the village, I will use my girl form and not my dragon form. Witnessing her commandable attitude, the village's chief expression softened. All right, I will permit the dragon Laika to come and live in the village. Having a dragon around will serve to deter evildoers from outside as well. We'd gotten permission from the village chief. That's right, if the great witch is keeping an eye on her, I doubt there'll be any problems. She looks a lot more intelligent than my girl. It would have been ungrateful for us to reject the great witch's apprentice anyway. The villagers had also accepted the situation, thus Laika was granted citizenship. That day, it was decided that Laika would spend the night in the guest room with me. We had some time before dinner, so we relaxed in the room. As proof that I trusted her, I told her my current status. Laika seemed more surprised by the number of spells than by any of the pneumatic values. I knew it. All those spells mean you are really a legendary witch, Lady Azuna. Do you think so? For dinner, we went to my favorite restaurant, the Savvy Eagle. Laika ate with me, of course. Lady Azuna, thank you for what you said earlier. What? Oh, for talking to the villagers, you mean? As a dragon, I have always made others obey me by demonstrating my power, no matter the situation. However, being accepted through a method other than strength was a valuable experience for me. I was generally happy. I see. This is more than just training a new worker. I'll have to get a dragon used to life as a human as well. That's a good direction to move in. Keep it up. Of course. Thank you in advance for your help. Laika was pretty accustomed to using a knife and fork. She must have been mingling with people in towns for a very long time. Have you spent a lot of time living as a human? Yes, though I never actually lived in a town. Only very few people are able to tell when a dragon is in human shape, so I've hardly ever had any trouble. Fantasy Worlds had beastmen in as well, and maybe featured a miner as horned, could be explained anyway. No beastmen lived in Flatter, but travelling beastmen sometimes came through. Well, the village has accepted you now. Let's work to build a good house tomorrow too. Yes, I'll do an excellent job. The next morning, Laika got right down to work on the addition again. I went along as her superior. Things are progressing smoothly at the moment, and I have not had any real problems. It sure seems that way from where I stand. She was so fast it was hard to believe the houses could be built so quickly. This was also thanks to her dragon strength. By the way, Laika, how high are your stats? Since I'd won, mine were probably higher, but I wondered how great the difference was. I was just curious. I've never had to measure, so I'm not certain, but I've been known as the strongest dragon in Natri for roughly 100 years. That's a long time to be on top. And as a side, the province of Nantri includes these highlands and the surrounding area. And it feels a bit like Switzerland. Mountains are abundant here, so I'm not surprised dragons would choose to live in Natri. I've never been to Switzerland, so I'm saying this only because it felt like the right thing to say about now. I wonder if we should get you registered with the guild as an adventurer. I'll leave the decision to you. I'm not planning to put you through special training based on your numbers or anything. True, it could serve as an index, but unless I acquire strength that satisfies me, it's meaningless. From the sound of it, Laika wasn't that interested in things like status. It was probably because she was a dragon. Meeting a dragon would be enough to make most people grovel. Conversely, if you're human, it's hard to tell what sort of power you have unless you show your status. Because of that, I think we tend to use status to make others view our own strength objectively. By the time noon drew near, it was possible to make out what sort of structure that was shaping up to be. The original house had acquired a log cabin addition. It reminded me of the summer residencies you might see at Kawazawa, and it fit right up in the highlands. Brick houses or buildings with stained glass windows would have required specialized artisans, so I decided to use wood. Yes, this is fine. Keep doing what you're doing. I think we should break for lunch soon, though. Let's go out to the village to eat. No, I'll reach a better stopping point very soon, so I'll keep going. Leica, did you forget what I said yesterday? When it's time to rest, you rest. Don't make a virtue of working too much. As long as I'm around, I won't tolerate poor working conditions. No, it isn't that I want to work a lot. It's only that stopping when things feel half finished will bother me. In that case, reach a good stopping point within the next 10 minutes. Yes, ma'am. Work-life balance, work-life balance. I feel like a human resources manager. In the village, we ate something pasta like for lunch, and I had Leica drink a lot of water. She'd been doing physical labor for a significant length of time, so I wanted her to rehydrate. Parenthetically, the village of Flatia had an abundant groundwater, so that resource was not in short supply. After our meal, Leica and I took a leisurely walk through the village. There was a reason for that too. I wanted to get the villagers used to her face sooner rather than later. I thought I'd have her registered at the guild while we were at it, but as they felt like it would count as work hours in a way, I left it for another day. If only I'd wanted to exchange magic stones, I could do that on my own. Then the afternoon construction work began. We'd made considerable progress, and it felt as if I'd entered the final stretch. The walls were done, so she began putting the wooden roof on. Finally, we carried chairs and tables made from extra lumber to the building. I'd helped with that bit. The wood was surprisingly easy to cut, and I hadn't gotten tired. Clearly, my level was indeed high. By evening, the remodel of the house in the Highlands had been completed without any mishaps. Yes, splendid! Looking at it from the outside, I felt satisfied. The room that had been particularly demolished earlier had been turned into an enclosed corridor that led to the addition, a log cabin-style area with a peaked roof. The cabin had its own external door, so it was possible to enter directly. The addition had a high ceiling and rooms on its second story. On the first floor, in addition to a shaped space, there were 3 individual rooms, meaning my apprentice privacy was guaranteed. Even if I picked up more apprentices, we'd be able to accommodate them. I mean, at this point, I had absolutely no intention of doing that, but... Excellent work, Leica. I'm very glad it pleases you, Lady Azuna. Leica seemed rather pleased with herself. Since she appeared to be the same age as a middle school girl, the expression was very cute on her. All right, we'll need to go back to the village and tell them the house is finished. They may be getting the guest room ready for us again today. Thank you very much for doing so much to help me fit in the village. There she went again. Leica was probably raised very well. I'd said I'd be your teacher. I'm only doing what a teacher would do. I haven't even done anything special. It was nothing to brag about, but it was only natural to take care of my apprentice. People didn't have to avoid her simply because she was a dragon. After all, no matter how you looked at it, she was a person. Well, let's have ourselves a feast in the village today, shall we? Wait, can dragons eat human food? Up till now, she had eaten the same food as I had, as if it was normal, but yes, when I'm transformed as a human, I'm able to eat like one. Apparently, it was no cause for concern. If I eat enough to fill a human's belly, it provides enough nutrition for me to survive as a dragon. That ability seemed a little bit like cheating. If we always flew, I wouldn't get enough exercise, so we walked down to the village. On the way, we ran into slimes again, so we took them out. Leica swiped at one with a hand like she was fanning dust away and sent it flying. It might have been because she was a dragon, but Leica seemed to focus rather heavily on combat when she looked at things. Of course, I do think that's because the village has always been peaceful. However, there's no guarantee it will remain so forever. You might be overthinking. I'd lived 300 years so far, and since the village didn't have much strategic value even during a war, I didn't think anyone would see it as a problem. The information that you are the strongest has begun spreading only recently though, Lady Azuna. It isn't a given that some crowd won't take the village hostage as an attempt to defeat you. At that point, Leica cleared her throat, flushing a bit. Of course, I fought you fairly, without doing anything so spineless, she added, pointing out that she wasn't that type. Yes, you were quite honourable there. Even so, we don't know whatever things will change in the future. Word of the Great Witch reached my mountain, and that's more than 2 full days from this village as human walks. You have a point. I'd had to make sure that the village didn't suffer because of me, no matter what. I couldn't allow that. Should we relocate the village then? But we just rebuilt the house, and I'd hate to move right away. And anyway, I'm not Siom, so I can't provide 24-hour security. I believe there are measures that we can take. How? It was embarrassing to ask my apprentice, but I hadn't even known about my own powers for more than a month. If this was a new job, I'd still be in training, so there was no help for it. Let's use magic to cast a barrier. Can we do that? I don't have anything like that in my spells list. I could use the following spells: teleportation, levitation, flame, whirlwind, item appraisal, earthquake, ice and snow, lightning attack, mind control, break spell, detoxify, reflect spell, mana absorption, language comprehension, transformation, spell creation. There wasn't anything barrier related in there, and at least I didn't think there was. You had something called spell creation, didn't you? We can use that to create our own barrier. Create your own? We can do that? DIY in this day and age? I guess even spells are homemade. Is it that easy to make new spells? That's incredibly versatile. Ordinarily, it's impossible. For one thing, that spell for magic creation is ultra advanced. This had to be a level 99 thing. It's extraordinarily difficult to create a spell that does not exist, but it should be possible to create a barrier that will protect a city. Let's try it tomorrow. Thanks to my apprentice, I'd learned something that hadn't even occurred to me before. Taking it on might have been the right move. We ate at the Savvy Eagle, the village restaurant, then retired to our new home. The next day, Leica and I ventured to a high hill overlooking a village. I say ventured, but we were very close to the house. I could actually see it from here. From here, I believe we'd be able to cover all directions. Then Leica reverted to her dragon form and began scratching on the ground with her sharp claws. At times like this, it was definitely more effective to be a large dragon. Are you planning on tilling this area and plant a field? I'm drawing a magic circle. Spells with long-term effects are more reliable if you use them. Oh, I see. I'd begun using magic in earnest only a month ago, but since I'd been reading grimoires for a while, I did know the basics. Attack spells and other magic with temporary effects tend to work even if your chant was off the cuff, and in certain situations, you could use them without chanting. You didn't need magic circles. In other words, it was okay to be a little sloppy with temporary ones. However, when casting spells like this barrier, which had to last a long time and maintain its effectiveness, it was the best to use a magic circle. It wasn't that they were certain to fail without a circle, but an effect meant to last half a year could end only after 3 days. As I hadn't been aware I could use a variety of spells, I hadn't memorized the details on how to draw magic circles. But given Leica was drawing the hexagon type of defense spells, this was probably what this was. Still, you dragons know a lot about magic too, don't you? If your life is 300 years long, it's a waste to spend it lazing around. That's why I ended up studying magic in an attempt to improve myself, although I didn't even use it. What? You're a poser? In 3 centuries, I'd never once thought of cultivating myself. Possibly as a reaction to my history slaving away, I developed a mindset that was important in life was relaxation. Plus, back when I belonged to the company, work had been the only thing on my mind, and I'd never managed to take it easy. If I had, I wouldn't have ended up working myself to death. Now that I think about it though, perhaps I should have spent that time humbly killing slimes or other similar monsters. On some level, I was proud that I neglected to acquire experience. True, once your strength reaches a certain level, you don't even feel like fighting. That was probably true for human adventurers as well. I couldn't imagine level 50s went around killing petty slimes. They probably only fought heavyweights like dragons. That said, battles with big shots almost never happened. They might occur about as often as a festival, maybe even less than once a year. As a result, levels plateaued at a certain point. On top of that, as a rule, your body responds well during a limited window of time in your life. So as people age, they grow weaker. As far as that went, not only had I maintained the appearance of physical age of a 17-year-old, I'd killed slimes routinely, so the build-up had more enormous. Alright, the magic circle is complete. Yes, unless you were the size of a dragon, it would be completely impractical to make such an enormous magic circle. So, I just stand in the center of this and chant. There were some expectations, but that was usually what it took to activate them. I think that will do it. Now come up with a chant as cool as you. My apprentice hit me with a ridiculous request. But Leica and I had talked it out beforehand and decided what sort of barrier it should be. It was fairly advanced, but since I was level 99, I had confidence it would go well. Ye with wicked heart, may this net ensure you and rob you of your freedom, as if by its own will it shall fall on thee. Ha! I felt as if the power was pouring out of me from my head to my toes. A golden light flew towards the town and enveloped it and winked it out. Did that work? Something infused with your wishes flew toward the village, Lady Azuna, so it'll be fine. If my apprentice says that it'll be okay, no doubt it will be. By the way, the barrier had cast a couple of effects. First, it covered the village with a magic shield. This way, if an attack spell came in from far away, we'd be able to block it. That was how normal barriers worked. The other effect was something original. If the people with malcurious hearts entered the village, the barrier would detect them and wrap them around like a net, immobilizing them. Apparently, clerks who worked at shrines were able to use spells that trapped evildoers, and I'd combined one of those with the spells. To be honest, there's almost no precedent for giving a single magic barrier multiple effects. It was possible because of your used spell creation, Lady Azuna, and because you were a witch of the highest order. Like it was helping on the praise so much it was a little embarrassing. Since I've accrued so much power, I'd have to use it for good. I'd skated along for 3 centuries, but I'd taken care of the village. The reason was simple. This was my home turf. I made my own home in the Highlands, but I'd lived alongside the residents as a nearby hamlet, and the villagers thought so as well. If Flatia disappeared, I wouldn't be able to live by myself in that mountain house. The village of Flatia was like the nearest town with a train station. I wanted to be useful to this place. I wanted to use this place where I lived. At least, that had been my motive for making medicines and the way I treated sick people. For 300 years, that had been my reason for being the thing that gave value of existence. This barrier was in line with the perspective, so I'd cast it the right way. If I managed to protect the village, it would make me happy, giving meaning to the accidental ascension to level 99. It did seem that I might start getting requests to go save other villages and towns after this, which raised concerns about the future. But, alright, let's return to the village and report this to the chief. In that case, please ride on my back. No, I'll walk this time. I'd eaten quite a bit yesterday and wanted to get some exercise in. When we explained the matter to the village chief, he was so happy he cried. Enormous tears streamed down his face, so much that I started worrying that he'd get dehydrated. That's splendid. You really do think about Flatia, Great Witch of the Highlands. It's just that I've heard news of my strength is getting around and I wanted to take precautions. I can't say that someone who takes pride in their own prowess won't do the same to the village. Say someone challenged me the way Leica did, and I accepted it and won. I couldn't guarantee the loser wouldn't strike at the village in a bit of revenge. It was probably also true that because of me, the name Flatia was becoming more well known. That increased the odds of troublemakers showing up. No. The concern that the village's security might be weak has come up on the agenda frequently over the past 500 years. Now, at least the problem is solved. If it's been an issue that long, just do something about it already. Still, people tend to avoid taking safety measures until they get burned. They're generally stingy with the budget until then, too. Nobody wants to sink money into something that might turn out to be nothing. Why don't we erect a copper statue of you, Great Witch? I wager all the villagers would agree to it. Whatever you do, please don't. Someone who carved the limelight might be happy with such an honor, but the idea left me completely cold. Since we'd finished with the subject of the barrier, Leica and I returned to the remodeled house. The problem with this type of security system is it's hard to tell how well it's working when things are so peaceful. It's like how you don't need to go to the doctors while you're healthy. You want to see if the doctor is good, you need to be sick or injured. That said, it would be the best things stayed so quiet that we'd never get to find out. So, we'd finished the day's real business, but there was still something that I had to check, like his cooking. Since the two of us would be living together, we need to share the cooking and cleaning. Preferably, I wanted my apprentice to shoulder most of it. That said, if I left it all to her, I'd risk rotting as a human being, so I planned to do a good bit of the work myself. The goal was 50-50. However, if Leica's cooking was immediately awful, 50-50 wouldn't work. To that end, today, I was holding a test. First and foremost, do dragons even cook? You'd think they just gobble things down raw. Yes! After all, we aren't barbarians. Dragons are a noble race. We cook properly. Leica puffed out her chest. I've purchased a good array of groceries. Make something with them, alright? Yes, I understand. I'll do my very best. Leica went into the kitchen, seeming pretty enthusiastic. In this world, they have metal tanks filled with flame magic, and it's possible to use them to adjust fires. However, they're luxury items, so they tend to be utilized only by the rich. The more frugal use stones that you can strike together to create sparks and set dry straw alight. If you can use flame magic, you do. Ever since I'd learned I could use it, I stuck to that method. Fire is very versatile, so magicians try to learn it fast. Leica exhaled a small stream of fire breath, as if she was whispering, I see, she can use flames when she's in a girl form. Okay, that's a good amount of fire. No problems at the moment. Calm down, calm down. I am a dragon. I'm not a woman to be pursued over something like this. She does seem to be pretty flustered. Is she going to be okay? It's worth noting I was only overhearing her. I decided not to look at what she was making. If I watched the whole time, I might have made her nervous, and I wouldn't have been able to anticipate whatever food she brought out. About 30 minutes later, I heard a cheerful voice announce, It's finished! Now then, what exactly had she cooked up? The first plate had a large salad. Some medicinal herbs were only faintly bitter and could be eaten either raw or boiled. Several of these were incorporated. What drew the eye more than anything was the enormous omelette on another plate. She must have used about 10 eggs. I do like omelettes, but this one might have been too many calories, don't you think? It was my ultimate masterpiece. Go on, try it! Well, the issue of portion sizes was secondary. What really mattered was the flavor. I took the first bite. Oh, it's delicious! What a superb, fluffy, silky texture! And you filled it with sautéed onions and carrots? That part was standard. Even so, at this side, if the whole thing was that flavor, I couldn't get tired of it. Huh? It tastes different now. Oh, if you go little to the side, there's cheese too. That's right. I added small portions of different flavors to the omelette. It makes finding out what's underneath the egg a little more fun. Still, I'm surprised you managed to make such a huge omelette. When I went back to get the money, I picked up the cooking utensils and things as well. She was that eager to become an apprentice? By now, I was appreciating her enthusiasm. Leica, girl, you are pretty good. The huge omelette was made so that they could enjoy a grand total of 4 different flavors. It was a lot like those giant rice balls with different fillings in different areas. Frankly, this is fantastic. I've only seen the omelette and the salad, but I'll acknowledge that you do indeed have cooking skills. Thank you so much. I'll continue to do my very best. Leica seemed thrilled at the praise. My apprentice knew how to take a compliment about something perfectly normal, and I was grateful for the chance to offer them properly. It was a win-win relationship. The only thing is, I do think you might have used too many eggs. Maybe pay a little more attention to the balance, alright? My apologies. When I cook, my values as a dragon stay with me no matter what I do. Isn't your appetite the same as a human when you're in the girl form? She didn't seem to have eaten all that much at the restaurant. I can get by with smaller servings than I could as a dragon, but those portions really don't seem like enough. They make me feel like I'm dieting. Even an omelette this enormous may have seemed pretty low-cal to a dragon. From now on, go ahead and order without holding back, alright? I feel like I was at a risk of a little heartburn, so I drank some medicine that was good for the digestive system. It was made entirely from herbs, so I didn't have to worry about how much I took. And just then, I felt something like a premonition. That's weird. I think something just happened in the village. Do you suppose the barrier had been triggered? True, we'd set up the barrier that day, and it might have been why I felt ill. In all of my 300 years, I'd never experienced this before. That being the case, I'd made sense to go check. Leica, we're going to the village. Yes, ma'am. Leica had switched to her dragon form, and I rode through the night on her back. As always, she changed into a girl form just outside the village. Then she went in with me. From a distance, I could see people lighting a bonfire. That meant something had happened. Excuse me? What's going on? Oh, it's the Great Witch and her apprentice. You came right away. Amid the uproar, the village chief who had arrived explained, though I knew roughly what to expect, thanks to the man lying hogtied on the ground. A man came to the village after nightfall, and he suddenly couldn't move. That must have been the bound man. When we asked around, we learned that he's wanted a thief. He's been plundering the province lately. I expect they pilfered in a nearby town and then drifted into our village. The barrier worked then? That's right. It's all thanks to you, Great Witch. I see. So the power of the Malcarius people works on thieves too. I was scoping out the tavern from the back door, thinking I'd steal something, and all of a sudden I couldn't move. What the hell is this? The culprit confessed. I was going to flinch or something from the tavern, then make my getaway during the night. Then the barrier had indeed responded to the clearly wicked intent. That's wonderful, Lady Azuna. It worked immediately, like it was happy too. True, it did provide useful to the village. Regardless, I didn't deserve all the praise here. I wanted to keep things fair. Residents of Flatter, my apprentice Leica was the one who suggested the barrier. Please express your gratitude to her as well. I patted Leica's back, giving her a push. The villagers liked doling out compliments, and their eyes turned to Leica. I knew the Great Witch's apprentice would be different. Having a dragon with a good heart here is like having 100 more people on our side. This village is going to be a real comfortable place to live. Yep, that's right. I'm proud of my student. Bring on the praise. No, Lady Azuna is the one who created this barrier. I didn't do any... Leica seemed embarrassed, but if she was going to be my apprentice, she'd have to get used to this as well. This is rather awkward, isn't it? It didn't feel terrible though, does it? My educational policy is foster growth through praise. Why? Because when I was a wage slave, no one ever had a kind word for me. They ran me ragged, and the frustration built up. I'd spent only 5 years in that environment, but even after 300 years as a witch, these memories were still clear as day. As a rule, people like being complimented. In education, it might be bad to do nothing but praise people, but I'd like to give them accolades whenever I can. If that generates enthusiasm, that's a very good thing, isn't it? At any rate, there had been no damage to the village, and I was really glad about that. And with the relief came a yawn. Well then, we'll take our leave. Sleep well. If you'd like, you may spread the word that your village is under protection of a dragon. Lady Azuna loves this village, and I will defend it as well. Now, if you'll excuse me. Leica and I returned to our house in the Highlands. Lady Azuna, since the barrier activated slightly, it might be best to recast it tomorrow. That sounds like a plan. After that, word travelled that the witch had created the barrier to protect the village of Flatter. I'd managed to contribute to the peace of the village, and I considered it an honour. Since we solved the problem of the barrier, I began Leica's lessons in earnest. That said, there was really nothing I could teach her. I wandered around the Highlands with Leica in a girl form. If we encountered a slime, I killed it and retrieved the magic stone immediately. That was it. I did, however, move fast. The moment a slime entered my field of vision, my hands were already moving. I'd poked the lowly monster quickly with a finger. That's all it took for the slime to expire and vanish. I took its magic stone and put it in my bag. Amazing! Your movements were so quick I couldn't follow them with my eyes. I may not look it, but I've been killing slimes for 3 centuries, you know. I was most definitely first class, although it was doubtful whenever that there was something to brag about. After you've killed slimes for a while, your body starts reacting and killing them automatically. Once that happens, I'm sure your level will begin rising rapidly. I understand. I'll work so hard that someday I'll be able to stand on equal footing with you, Lady Azuna. And as she said this, she spotted a slime thrusting out a hand and knocked it away. Laika's attack power was significant, so she could kill them with a light bump from her hands or feet. By the way, Lady Azuna, approximately how many slimes did you kill each day? Let's see, about 25. Oh, but I had an effect that increased my number of experience points I require, so practically speaking, I suppose it would be about 50. Well, it wasn't likely that I just barely reached level 99 when I checked. After all, even if you hit level 99, your total experience points would just keep increasing, so I thought that was probably a way more accurate number. I just didn't know what it was. Even 50 seems surprisingly easy. I just assumed you put your backbreaking effort. It was fair to say it hadn't been much work at all. Listen though, if it had been backbreaking, I couldn't have kept up for 300 years. If you can do something anyone can do way more than anyone else ever does, there's meaning to it. Putting it like that was like claiming I'd done something meaningful, which was a little embarrassing. I see. I'd expect no less from you, Lady Azuna. What profound words. Not only that, but Laika was deeply moved, which made it even more awkward. Still, there might be at least some wisdom in my choices. As a teacher, maybe I could tell her about it. Say, Laika, you mentioned backbreaking effort, but get rid of that idea, alright? Huh? Why is that? Maybe my words seemed paradoxical to her. Laika looked relaxed. You see, people put in backbreaking effort on the assumption that someone will see it. When you use that expression, you were probably at least a little proud of it. Now you mention it, when you go through exerting effort or training, you start feeling impressive for having done it. To a certain extent, it's unavoidable. Frankly, when I was owned by the company, I tried to consider myself noble for my efforts too. I'd also believed unconsciously that I was better than the more easygoing types or the unemployed. That, however, had been a mistake. Listen, Laika, if you do something because you want people to think you're so great, and then they don't, you won't be able to endure it, or you'll lose your enthusiasm. I was able to keep this up for as long as I did because I never thought about how people would see me. What profound wisdom! Laika was listening very intently. I do things because I like them, and because I want to do them. If you feel that way about something, you'll be able to stick with it. Do you understand? I really am glad that I chose you as my teacher, Lady Azuna. The scales have fallen from my eyes. You mean, if I want to grow stronger, I must discard the desire to have others think well of me. Since I'm improving myself, I should face myself first. How insightful! What a deep, meaningful doctorate! I didn't think I said anything that grand. It's fine to be impressed, but don't go getting delusioned on me later. That day, I ended the training when Laika had eliminated about 60 slimes. It's not like the slimes were ever going to take revenge, so be sure to kill them steadily. I live to regret that, Mark. Why do I always end up saying things that trigger a flag? And that, we come to a close of that chapter. Now, if you like this sort of content and you want to see more, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as that cheeky notification bell to be notified when more videos drop. We have a few more light novels to kind of go through. This is going to be an ongoing thing for quite some time, so I'm hoping that you're liking them. And it's definitely improving for my skills. That's what it's there for. So if you like this sort of content and you want to see more or listen to more, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as that cheeky notification bell to be notified when more videos drop. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.
チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。